think COVID, probably one of the best things that could have happened to me for trading. I was able to help him pay his employees and also sustain my family. And then once the restaurant was sold, I just told my parents to retire because I can look after them. But like, I actually had a conversation with my mom recently, and she was like, yeah, like it was actually really tough paying for bills. You know, I can't remember whether I was in primary school or high school.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fair Value Podcast, this being our first episode ever. So thank you to everybody who's watching this right now. Today we're going to be chatting to Jaime Hu, who I've known for quite some time now. In fact, we met in a pretty interesting way quite a few years ago, and we'll chat about that later in the podcast. We also go over his early life and how it felt to be able to retire his parents at such an early age, which is amazing. And I think that's something that a lot of us dream to do. So it'll be amazing to get into how that feels and what it was like for him. So just before we get into the podcast, I would just like to ask each and every one of you, if you wouldn't mind, to click on the subscribe button just down below. It really helps our channel and it helps us get in touch with much bigger guests so that we can bring you more value in future. Also, if you want other guests on this podcast, please do comment down below and let us know who you want us to have on the podcast next. So cheers, everybody. Let's crack on with this episode.
So, I really want to know, bro, I want to dive really deeply into where everything started for you. So before trading, how was life for you? And like I always say, in order for most people to become a profitable trader and to become successful, you have to have a really strong why. Why did you start out? And like I've said as well in the past, a lot of people come to me and they'll say, hey, I want to get into trading and make some extra money. And I'm like, don't even bother. Don't even just forget about it. If your reason is to get into to make a little bit of extra money, you're never going to make it because it's too difficult. That's not enough of a motivation to keep you going and push you through all of the stuff. So when you started out, I want to know a bit more of firstly, what your why was, and also where you were at, before you started the journey when it came to trading.
Cool. So, I came to Cape Town to study strategic management at Varsity College. Shout out Varsity College, Rondebosch. Studied strategic management, and already off studying, I knew it wasn't really for me. You know, if you look at I remember we got this pamphlet and they showed hey, what you study is kind of what you would do. A manager, they said strategic management, you become a CEO. And in my family, my uncle is a CEO for a hotel frozen foods company, and he's quite successful for himself. So that was my initial motivation for studying strategic management. First year, I looked at it and I already knew it wasn't for me. And in the back of my head, I kind of already wanted to do extra stuff. Had no idea what trading was back then. Trading wasn't even an option. So back then, I was looking at inspirations like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, all those people. So in my second year of studying, I got into the app business. I remember, two of my best mates, Julian Lai and Nikhil, we grew up together, and Nikhil's in actuary, Julian's he studied mechatronics, and I'm here studying strategic management. And with those people, they're 2 years older than me. I always looked up to them, and I approached them with this idea of this app. So basically, this app was a nightlife app. It was called Lit Night. So we would basically take all these bars, clubs, and kind of like how the Uber's laid out. When you open Uber, you see the map. So you would basically see locations, and the location would have a flame. And if there's an event, the flame would light up. So that was my basically pitch with this application, that if you're out and you kind of want to know where to go, back then you would look at Facebook events, what's popping off. You could see, okay, cool. For example, Club A is busy popping off, and you can see the stories that they post on social media, the details and all that jazz. So had this idea, approached them with the idea. It was a little bit too risky for them. Especially I came up with a quote to develop the app. It was something like 1.5, 2 million rand. And back then I was studying. I had zero money at all. And even to ask my parents for that money, no. So I went different routes. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos to see how people can actually start something like this. And then I came across this platform called Upwork. So Upwork, basically, there's a bunch of freelancers for like a low price. I found this guy in India and basically gave him everything that I wanted to develop. And the end cost was 60,000 Rand for an iOS app, Android app, web app, back end, front end, everything, the whole package. So I took the risk of that, asked my parents for the money to pursue that thing. Because honestly, like back then I thought like, hey, cool. I believed in the business. And I was like 60,000 Rand compared to like, I wasn't too sure how businesses worked and stuff. Yeah, I just looked at like the evaluation of what Facebook was. I was like, I'm literally going to be Mark Zuckerberg. 60,000 Rand's nothing. Okay. Borrowed the money, got the app developed, did some work where I tried to get businesses into the platform. And then one of my friends, Nikhil, he was working with Alan Gray, where basically they would just take a bunch of entrepreneurs and they would network, tell each other their businesses and see how they can add value. I came across this French investor and he directed me to this other company called the Big Five. So they basically just like, they basically the Google of tech in the Ivory Coast and kind of in Paris as well, in France. So I worked with them for a year. They acquired the app that I developed. And already off that, like I kind of got a little bit of validation that this is going to work out. So that was in my second year of university that all of this happened. And I decided to leave uni to pursue this app because I was like, I'm going to spend from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day at university doing these assignments, doing this homework, where I actually have something that I'm getting traction off that I can actually build. So I just decided to go full steam ahead. A year went through working with the French company and nothing, no money, no progress with the app. And back then, like I think it was like August time 2019, I was kind of getting a little bit worried, like, okay, it's 8 months down the line, I've made zero money, what am I going to do? So then that's how I actually discovered trading. And I discovered trading through YouTube. Okay. I remember I watched this one YouTube video of this guy in the UK, and he went to go buy like a Mercedes GT, and then he went to this place called Selfridges, where like he bought like a bunch of designer clothes, and I was like, you know what, this is crazy. Like you buying a supercar, and then you're gonna go buy like designer clothes. Not necessarily that was a goal, but having that financial freedom, that's what I was aiming for. So I did my research on trading, looked a little bit too good to be true, especially, with all the screenshots that you see on social media. And then I did research on trading in South Africa. And I looked at the top traders in SA back then. And it just came off a little bit too scammy for me. Yeah. So I thought I'm not going to put money into that because especially like money was tight back then. So I actually joined this other guy in the UK and I got scammed, ironically enough. So yeah, I invested 15,000 Rand with him, and that was a lot for me. Like, again, had to ask parents for money. Yeah. Like, this is going to work out, I'm going to be rich. Got scammed, and I realized, like, after I got scammed, like, there's no shortcuts. If you want to do something, you honestly have to do something yourself. So I had like roughly 2,000 Rand left for trading. Did my own trades, made like a couple cents, just literally buying, selling, like not knowing. I just thought like, hey, cool, it's going up, buy, it's going down, sell. And like I would make money, but like you're talking like 50 cents, like USD, I didn't know what lot sizes were, anything. Then actually started seeing screenshots again on my Instagram with NASDAQ. And I would see people having like 1,000 Rand accounts with 20,000 Rand profit. And I'll be like, what is this? What is this?
A lot of people ask me, what is my favorite prop firm to use? And the answer is simple. It's Blue Guardian. Blue Guardian has the best prop firm conditions of any prop firm I've used to trade with. And they allow you to take an unlimited amount of time to pass your evaluation. Not only this, but they give you the Guardian Protector, which is a tool that stops you from hitting your max daily loss. You can also set it further down to stop you from over-trading for that day. It simply cuts off your MT4 account, and you can't continue to trade if you hit more than that loss. So if you want to use the prop firm that I use,
click the link down below and use the code GARTRADES to get 10% off your purchase. Let's continue with the video.
I think that that's like one of the biggest traps in the world. It's like you see the things that aren't typical. You know, these results aren't typical, and literally you see that happen, and you're like, but they're making it happen, or what it seems like they're making it happen every day, but you don't see what happens in between. Sure. And I think that a lot of people jump into it expecting that to be the reality every day. And obviously, like if you only see one thing, right? But your brain tells you, hey, this is something you can do all the time, and it's a weird thing because in your actual logical brain, you're like, there's no way. Like that's just not how it works. And the thing for me as well is like discovering that, yes, that's not the reality, but there is a reality in which you can be profitable. And I think that that's one of the biggest things. Like, so for you, like, I want to know, like, obviously your journey, like, it's difficult. Like, for most of us, it takes at least like what I've discovered, it takes usually about 3 years for traders to find, you know, some kind of profitability. And along the way, obviously, like, there are moments where I think pretty much everybody in this space, particularly the Forex space, you're going to get scammed one way or another, in one way or another, whether it be by, you know, somebody selling a course that's really basic, like babypips.com basic, and you pay like whatever, 5-10 grand for it. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a few that spring to mind. And then, you know, so that's like more of an indirect kind of scam, but then you've got, you know, people that will directly scam you. And obviously I feel like that's why people take different times to make it, is because some people have to hit their head a bit more than others. And I definitely hit my head a lot more. Like, what would you say, like, some of your biggest, like, hit your head moments are? Like, was it definitely when you got scammed by that guy in the UK? Or, and also, like, how did that end up happening? Like, how did you end up getting to the point of, firstly, like, believing what he was telling you, and then also, like, what did you think the outcome was going to be? And I also think that, like you said, like, we eventually learn that there's no shortcuts, and you just have to put in the work. You have to take the knocks. It's like, you know, I mean, if you want to get in shape, you just got to, like, go just start working out. Like, there's no other way. Like, you can get plastic surgery, but everybody else is going to know you got plastic surgery, you know, like, whatever, they're going to know. So it's the same thing, really. So for you, like, how, firstly, those, like, I hit my head moments and I learned, did you go through a lot of those before you got to a place where you could say, hey, I'm on a pathway to being, like, profitable and I'm making this work? And also, like, how did you learn from each of those? And like, for example, like with the guy from the UK, like, how did that change your outlook? Did it discourage you, or did you, like, were you able to overcome it and like push forward and basically learn from it and grow from it?
Yeah. So I'd say that, you know, so how I approached this UK guy was his social media. He had a YouTube back then as well, and Instagram, and he would have, like, you know, the Lamborghini Huracan, the Louis Vuitton, all that stuff. So me seeing that kind of, like, already bought that validation stamp that, okay, he's making money off this, he's legit. Do you know what I'm saying? Which obviously it's not the right approach that you should have, but, you know, like, especially now, like, unless you have these materialistic things, people don't believe you, you know? So for me, that was, like, I didn't do my research good enough, but that was enough for me. Like, seeing him drive the Lamborghini, seeing him wear 30,000 rands worth of stuff.
I think it's one of those things that you can have the one without the other. I think you can have the Lamborghinis, you can have the Rolexes, you can have the diamonds, you can have the mansion. But just because you have that doesn't firstly make you profitable or a good trader.
100%.
But just because you have that doesn't also mean you can't be a profitable trader. So firstly, it doesn't, you're going to have one, sometimes without the other. But generally, if you are doing well and you're successful, you're going to have those things anyway. So it's more for me, like, I would say it's more of a, the person if they've got those things, it means that they possibly could be successful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are. And I think, like, I've learned that, and I mean, that's the thing, like, I think for, like, yourself, I mean, like, you're partial to, like, a luxury watch doesn't mean that, you're just flashing it to sell people courses and shit. It's just because you have it is a byproduct of the hard work you've done.
100%.
But other people, obviously have that and haven't done the work. They've obviously gotten it from their shortcuts. So, but I feel like a lot of people just write people off as soon as they see any of those things, but they're not realizing that, yes, there is such a thing as a profitable trader, firstly. In this industry, it's not just one big scam. And just because you have those things doesn't mean that you equal the other. And I think there's a line like that you can draw, like, between the legit trader that has luxury items, but they're not relying on their trading side business, supposed to be side business, but they're, like, for example, following and their influence to pay for those things. What do you think, like, is the distinction between that, like, trading influencer and an actual trader? Like, what do you think sets those two apart?
See, so it's obviously like a catch-22 kind of thing, with those kind of situations, because again, with traders, like you said, there's two different sides. There's one person that will be extremely flashy to get validation, and then one person that will use their community and their work to get validation.
I think that's a very big distinction. I think that's where there's you can already differentiate, like, very strongly.
100%. But I also think, like, the thing is, with those two sides, it depends what gets that person traction. Do you know what I'm saying? So if, for example, like, if a guy is selling signals or his course or whatever it may be, if he's using purely his community to get success or his education, and if that doesn't get enough traction, I feel like traders will obviously take their signal stuff and their course quite seriously, that they'll use a different method, hence coming in the materialistic stuff. Where, same with, if you start off materialistic, like, if you think about, okay, the materialistic trader versus the trader that posts his community success, more eyes are going to be on the person that posts the materialistic things, just because that's how humans are programmed. They don't necessarily want to see, like, okay, cool, I've helped 5 people to financial freedom this month, whereas I've rented 5 Lamborghinis this month. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think, like, every trader would like to be that well, not every trader, but it just depends on their intention. But I think every trader would like to just be like, my work speaks for itself. Yeah. My community speaks for itself, but they're not getting enough traction off that. Yeah. That's why I think a lot of traders go through that method of, like, being flashy, being dripped out in Gucci, showing them tap the card at Dior, so on. So I just think it's a matter of, like, what gets them traction. Their intentions could be pure. The flashy trader, he could be pure, but it's just what traction works for him.
Yeah, I think it's also a thing of, like, what is motivate? What are they selling at the end of the day? Are they selling the lifestyle, or are they selling the actual, like, the actual education? Because at the end of the day, you can tell the difference. Somebody is selling basically the outcome, and you're basically appealing to your normal human desires and the way that the brain is wired. You are appealing to people's outcome-based motivation. So people want to eventually be rich. So they're trading to become rich, but they're not trading to trade. That's the thing. You want to be involved with, in my opinion, a mentor that's going to mentor you is somebody who is teaching you to trade, not somebody who's teaching you to do this hack that's going to make you a ton of money so you have the same lifestyle as them.
What to do with their profits.
Exactly. So essentially, somebody that's not selling you a lifestyle, they're selling you skills to maybe one day have that lifestyle to some degree. But you can always tell where the person is trying to manipulate you into, for example, the more they push the lifestyle, the more you can tell that they don't have the other thing, which is the skill set, which is the knowledge and the experience. And that's what you want to have in somebody who's going to show you the way. And that's also the reason that I believe, personally, I learned a lot on my own without that. And I learned the most from YouTube, and I learned the most from being part of communities where I was generally, like, I wasn't learning directly from people. I would take parts that I learned from different courses and different education programs and put them together. But I wasn't learning directly from anybody. I wasn't being mentored by anybody. And I feel like that just worked better for me because I felt like I wasn't trying to be pushed or manipulated in any way. But yeah, I think that there's a very clear, distinct line that people obviously need to learn it, because if you are the one who's falling for this crap, then obviously you just need to hit your head a few times before you realize, okay, this is not what I need to go for. And on the way up, like, I started to, like, I was able to decide and figure out exactly what it was that I was looking for in education. And I got better, and I got better at deciphering which one was going to benefit me the most. So I feel like in terms of somebody that's looking for education and wanting to learn and get into the space, like, what would you recommend to them? Like, where would they start? Like, how would they go about seeking education firstly? Would you recommend that they find somebody to teach them? Obviously, not everybody has that kind of access to necessarily somebody who's going to be legit, because let's be honest, the legit people are few and far between.
100%.
What would you recommend to somebody? Obviously, you can't point them in a specific direction, but what would you recommend them to look out for, like, if they're looking for education and, like, getting started?
Look, I'd say, like, especially nowadays, there's so much free stuff on the internet, right? In terms of, like, for educational, I would always say all the crucial things, your foundation of trading, it's available anywhere for free. You don't need to buy a course to learn how to draw a trend line or support and resistance. You know, everything's on there. Like, even, you know, babypips.com, like, they cover enough for free. There's a ton of books out there. YouTube, crazy with free information. I'd say the only time when you actually need a mentor is when you need to work on your psychology for trading. Because obviously the mentors, or, you know, it just depends on who you approach, but they have experience in the field in terms of how to manage money, how to manage emotions. So I'd say that's a point where I would look to get a mentor to facilitate with that. Or if you have issues with actually understanding what you're reading or watching, like, if you watch a YouTube video on support and resistance and you still don't get it and you need someone one-on-one, then cool, you might need a mentor. But you don't have to get a mentor to learn the basics. And also trading, like, all you need is the basics. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. What differentiates a successful trader and an unsuccessful trader is their psychology, how they manage their emotions, how they manage money. That's a crucial factor with trading. Otherwise, everything's laid out on the floor for you. Like, there's no secret strategy. There's no secret this, that. It's all there. You just need to know how to use it.
For you personally, when you were getting into trading, like, would you say for yourself it was more of a trial and error thing? It wasn't a thing of somebody took your hand and showed you what to do. And also, did you, like, when it came to your methodology of trading, like, did you jump around a lot? Like, did you change the way that you do things? I have a feeling that you didn't change it very much. I think you pretty much just stayed on the same course, but I want to hear, like, more about that.
Cool. So, I actually had no mentor. Like, everyone that asks me, like, have you had a trading mentor? Have you done a course? I've done 0 courses, had 0 mentors. I just read a ton of books and I lost a lot of money. That's how I learned. You know, I did dabble in my signal groups. I think, you know, like Hamid signal group, that kind of did set me up to, like, understand that this is a thing that you can actually make money from. But again, after what happened with the UK scammer, I also, like, realized that, you know, you can't be reliant on people. You know, like, you do have to, like, Hamid's an amazing trader, but what happens if he just decides, like, one day, like, I'm done, you know, I'm just going to trade for myself? Then you left in the dark. So for me, like while I was in signal groups, I was building on my knowledge of trading. And I'd say like my trading style has actually changed a lot, because when I did start, trading, especially being in signal groups, like being on signal groups, you don't learn a lot, especially back then, like people wouldn't post their analysis and stuff. You would just go off a buy and sell signal and stop losses and stuff. I would have no idea what's happening. But I think, like as I was experiencing trading and trying to learn stuff myself, I basically took all the basics and just compounded on everything. Like I did think that there's a strategy for this specific pair, or there's like a secret way to trade to like always win. But I did soon realize that there's no such thing as a strategy. It's just what you see and what you use. Like people can come up with like a strategy saying like this is the golden circle crown point fork, and this is how you do that, when basically it's just like a rejection on a trend and resistance, or like your reversal fib zone. So for me, I just kind of dissected all the noise in the industry of like this is that and this is the secret way, and just focus on the pure basics. And actually, like I compounded all my knowledge, and even till now, like I'm just compounding everything, because the thing is like, you might have a certain style like of just trading trends, but then you know how to trade patterns as well. But the best thing is actually trading trends and patterns together. Do you know what I'm saying? Like so I'm not saying that that's how you should trading patterns and trends, but I'm just saying taking all the information that's given to you and what you know, and factoring it into what you see in the market. So even now, like actually, like I used to purely focus on fib zones and patterns, and actually completely forgot trend lines and support and resistance. But now, like I reintroduced support and resistance into my analysis, and especially me exiting trades and all that stuff, and it's helped me tremendously. So for my method of trading is just compounding knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well. And like, funny thing is, we actually met in a simple group.
Yep. Still have the chats.
Trade, like,
yeah.
What do you think was the reason that we took this trade? Like, was there a trend line here? Like, yeah, dude, it's crazy. And
it was one of those things, like that's where our journeys kind of started at a similar kind of time, and we were both trying to figure things out, and we sort of helped each other figure out things together, and then we sort of went our own ways. And that again shows like how it's two different people who started off in the same place. We went sort of different directions to some degree, and we ended up, with a similar sort of result. Obviously, Jamie is further ahead than me, but like I feel like it just shows that like there's different people that do things in a different way, and it can still have the same kind of result. And I think for myself, like I sometimes like want to slap myself because I've taken longer than I should have to get to the point where I'm at. And I believe that's just because personally, my life experiences and the way that I've lived life up till now, I've not particularly been the most disciplined person, nor am I the most suited to be a successful trader, in that I struggle with anxiety, and as we know, like anxiety is like literally worrying about what's going to happen, and trading is literally trying to figure out what's going to happen and trading. So literally, and then obviously anxiety is obviously directly linked to your emotions, and so like as a trader, dealing with heightened emotions and heightened anxiety, obviously, like, so for someone like me, literally starting at the same point as you, and we sort of diverged and sort of then converged again at the end is pretty cool. And I think that it also just speaks to that there's more than one way to do things. And again, it was just us eventually figuring out that we need to focus on the process and not on the outcome. 100%. And that's why I say, like, if somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I want to make some extra money, don't you want to like show me how to trade? And I'm like, don't even bother, because if you're going to try and learn and that's your motivation, that's not enough motivation. You need to want to make a serious change for not just yourself but your family, and like you need to have a serious belief in yourself, like, because not only is what you're trying to achieve very, very unlikely. Firstly, the reality is that being a successful trader is very unlikely. You literally got a fraction of a percentage of a chance to be successful. That's how many people are successful. But everybody else knows it. And they also know that the majority of people that are in this space are using this dream to manipulate people. And so obviously Forex has a very bad rap.
Yeah, sure.
So the people around you and the closest people to you are also they're going to doubt your journey to some degree. Like, how did you deal with like your people that are closest to you potentially doubting what you're wanting to do, or were they like were they pretty supportive in general, or did they like give you the benefit of the doubt, or did they just not like hear all of the bad stories about the space, or did you just keep it to yourself? Because for me, I just kept it to myself. I was trying to tell people about, hey, this is what I'm going to do. The next couple of years, I'm going to be here. I'm working really hard, but at some point you have to eventually guard yourself, like, and your psychology, obviously, as a trader, that's very important. But for you, like, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, so
for me, this is a toxic trait, but like, whenever I get super excited about something, I just go full transparent mode, and obviously with transparency comes judgment. So again, with one of my best mates, Nikhil, he's an actuary, so he's very like, risk, like he manages risk to the T, and trading was just like, the green devil for him, when I told him that I was busy doing it. So yeah, like he would, like with the success comes belief, but when I first started, I remember him saying like, are you sure this is like what you want to do? Like, are you sure this is sustainable? And still now till this day, actually my dad like doesn't actually agree with trading. He doesn't like it. He thinks it's too risky. He doesn't think it's sustainable because he's very like traditional. Like my dad's Chinese, and my mom's Spanish. So my mom's super laid back. Like no matter what I do, she would always believe in me and tell me like, hey, cool, go for it. It could be like, I want to sell alpacas in Iceland, and she'll be like, yeah, that sounds great, do it. Where my dad, like he wants me to be like an accountant or a lawyer or just and it's ironic because he's actually like an entrepreneur. He came to South Africa with nothing, started import-export business, a small one, not like nothing crazy, and then after that closed it down and opened a restaurant. So he's actually an entrepreneur at heart, but for me to go into that space, he was very like, what are you doing? Get a job, get a proper job and stuff. So yeah, like a lot of judgment did come my way, especially it's quite difficult when it's in your family and stuff. But I think what I did was like I knew how my dad would react, so everything, like I remember when I made profits, I'll send my mom screenshots, like, oh, I did this, she'll be amazing, babes, good for you, I love you, all that stuff. My dad, I wouldn't share much just because I know like I would send him stuff and he'd be like, oh, okay, cool, like it's not gonna last tomorrow, he'll be like straight up like that. So yeah, judgment is comes with almost anything that you do, especially like if you want to play it safe and you don't want to hear that judgment or criticism, you're going to be stuck in the matrix basically. Do you know what I'm saying? You're gonna be stuck with what society believes what you deserve. But if you want to break out of it, you have to take risks, and with risks comes judgment and criticism. Like you're gonna be judged regardless. Like if people say like, oh, do you really just put 5,000 rand into a brokerage? Like you don't even know, like if it's safe there or whatever. But yeah, with that being said, like I basically just took the judgment and criticism, and I try to separate that with my emotions. I had my mom supporting me with trading, but in terms of the judgment side, I try to keep it on a little bit of a low, even though it's always at the back of your head. But yeah.
Well, for me, I eventually just realized but it's also like people can sometimes be just like non-judgy in a judgy way. They'll be like, oh, that's great, like oh, I'm so glad to hear about it, but you can tell in their head they're like busy scrutinizing what you're doing. But the thing is, that's part and parcel of what you're doing, and it's just part of the path that we decided to take, and I think that it's something that we just have to deal with. And I think a lot of people have different ways of dealing with it, and I think there are a very few people that have had like very supportive people that supported them all the way, and that's great. But I also think as well, we can't take it personally. We just have to understand that what we're doing is something that, like I said, is not literally very improbable. It's not something that most people can do. And obviously we're going to have to do things on the way to get there that other people are not doing. And that's just the reality of it. If you want extraordinary results, you're going to have to do things that everybody else isn't doing. And so essentially, what I personally ended up doing was just keeping it all to myself, which again is like,
It's tough.
it's difficult because you eventually start running out of people to like share good news with, as well as people to share the bad news with, to encourage you when you're down. But I think as well, like what I ended up doing was finding people on the same journey as myself, and I think that's just where like a community helps. And but not just that. I mean, there's a difference between having an internet community and like knowing people that that live near you, that you can literally say, hey, I'm struggling, I've had a bad week and this is what's going on, and they'll say, hey, you did this wrong, you've been stupid, blah blah blah, but it's okay, if you do this you'll be fine, and I've had a good week and this is why, do this. And I eventually found those people, and that really helped me personally, because it's almost like you've got somebody to bounce ideas off of and talk to about not only like the bad side, but also like what you want to achieve, and people that are on the same wavelength as you. So like I say, like people that don't, you tell them your dreams and you tell them what you're wanting to achieve, and they're not like, hey, you're out of your mind. So I had to be careful with that. And personally myself, like I sometimes just don't have a filter. So I will literally just say to people like, hey, I want to achieve this in the next 2 years. And they're like, you're absolutely insane. Like you're working at a cell phone store. What are you talking about? Like that was literally it. Like I was like, hey, in like 2 years from now, I'm not going to be working here, and I'm going to be earning what I earn here in a month in like a couple of days or a day. And they're like, are you insane? Like what the hell? And you have to just be careful with who you share your dreams with, and you also have to be careful with who you share like good news with, because the good news is what encourages you, but you can easily have that turn into something negative if people react to it negatively. Like you said, like with your dad, like saying, hey, you did well, and he's kind of like, oh, it's a once-off, you never know, it could just go tomorrow. And obviously that can be super discouraging. Like, how did you end up dealing with it? Like I said, like I found people that had like I could bounce stuff off of. It took me a long time, but I think that was also key as well in what I was doing. Did you just end up like dealing with it yourself, or was there another way that you ended up dealing with it?
I think so. Obviously, like when I first shared the beginning stages of success with my dad, I didn't get that validation from him of it, like, okay, yeah, cool, like you're doing great and stuff. So that was tough to kind of believe in myself more. But I think the moment I had more self-love with myself, and also like belief in my skills, my knowledge, and also my business, it kind of builds that confidence, where what other people say, like even now till this day, like I've built so much, not in a cocky way, but I've built so much confidence with like my business and my skill set and just my mental well-being, that I can take almost anything, any criticism, and I'll still be okay. I'll still do the same thing that I was originally going to do tomorrow. So what, the beginning stages with my dad was tough in terms of like, criticism on trading. But I think eventually once you feel like the man, in terms of like success and just bringing in XYZ per month, whatever, that was enough for me to kind of be like, I've bought this validation, this seal of validation for myself already. Like him saying great job is going to be a bonus, but I don't need it. Do you know what I'm saying? And him saying it's not going to be there tomorrow, won't necessarily make me scared and stop.
when did
you come to that point where you were like, hey, I'm okay with it. I don't need to worry. I know what I've achieved. I don't need to I don't need to, shout about it and have people validate it and like bounce it back at me and say, hey, good job, you did it. Like, I think there comes a point as well, and I feel like I'm starting to get to that point only now, where I'm like, hey, I don't really care because I know what I've been able to achieve and I know what I was capable of doing. So what other people care don't matter. When did you feel like you hit that point? Was it like a specific point where you were just like, hey, this is working out? Like, was it a specific trade? Was it a specific, was there a specific event that happened that, like, you felt like, hey, I don't really care what other people say, like, I've done it?
have that moment of, hey, I don't care, like,
I think for me, like, again, it's just those little successes or little steps of success that actually lead you to that feeling of fulfillment or validation. So for me, obviously, like when I was first financially independent, where I could pay for my own stuff, look after myself without any help from family, that was the first step, but it wasn't the key factor. And then also, I remember during COVID, like my dad's restaurant, it suffered quite a lot because he had overheads, he had staff not making money because of the laws from the government and stuff. I was able to help him pay his employees and also sustain my family. And then once the restaurant was sold, I just told my parents to retire because I can look after them. So that, me telling my parents to retire was the key. Like, I always wanted to do that in my whole life. But that was the moment for me where I could just be like, I'm the man now, where I can look after my parents. They don't have to work. They can chill. My mom's 53 this year and my dad is 60 this year. They're young. And still, like, even, my parents were in Ladysmith, KwaZulu-Natal. That's where the restaurant was. And they moved to Cape Town last year. They retired last year, January. And even then, I still got a lot of noise because my dad didn't have his hands busy. He was bored at home, and all he would really do is just like judge, like.
But how did they like react to you being able to do that, and also like how
did you like build them up to that point? Like, were you they were aware that you were doing super well, or did you like literally just like one day just be like, hey, you don't need to worry anymore. Like, I'm gonna take care of everything. And also, like, when you were starting out, was this something that you like ever envisaged that you would do? And was it, obviously, I would understand that definitely would be the moment where you're like, hey, like, I don't really care what anybody says. This is something that most people won't be able to do in their lifetime. So like how did they react to you being able to do that? Like, were they, obviously by that point, I'm sure they'd come around a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, my dad, like, to be honest, like, still not that much. Like, even when I was like young and stuff, I would always say like, oh, like, I'll be rich one day, you guys won't have to work. I think, so my dad and I, we used to have a joke of like, his dream car was like a S-Class, Mercedes S63. And I said, I'll buy you that one day. And that was kind of like where it started of like, I want to give my parents that. Not necessarily materialistic stuff, but just like financial freedom as well. Because the best thing is when you can share your financial freedom with your loved ones. That's literally the best thing ever. It beats any car purchase, any overseas trip. So I think like I would tell it to my parents, even like when I was in university, when I didn't even know that I was going to do the Apple trading. I would say, I'll retire you one day. And like me thinking I'll retire them off like an accountant's salary, But yeah, I think my mom was quite taken back because like the thing with her, she's very like emotional and she believed in me from day one. So it was kind of seeing like her little project, like actually crossing that finish line. My dad, he was proud, like 100% proud, but also like he's, like, I don't know if it's a stereotype, like Asian men and stuff, especially like his generation where like, even if he's 80, he wants to be the breadwinner. Do you know what I'm saying? He wants to be like the main provider and stuff. So I don't want to say there was like who is the breadwinner, but he wanted to feel like that.
Like he's handing over the reins to
For sure.
as the
Yeah, for sure.
man of the family.
And he didn't hand it over, I took it. He didn't hand over the reins, I took it. Because, like, I remember they've been trying to sell their restaurant for, like, years. Especially, like, in Ladysmith, it's a small town. You're only going to, like, that economy in that town, you're not going to get rich off. So, when they sold the restaurant, they were looking to do something else. And I literally just told them, like, the money that you made from selling the restaurant, just keep it. Like, I'll get you an apartment here in Cape Town. You guys can just chill. You can do whatever you want, but you don't have to work. It was quite a big pullback from my parents and stuff. More so my mom like actually made me feel good about it. My dad, it like
but I think that's also a big thing as well for me. Like I remember telling my whole family and my parents and everyone, I was like, hey, look, like we're not gonna have to worry about any of this crap one day. Like I'm going to just sort it out. I know I'm going to make it. I know one way or another. It might not be 5 years from now. It might be 10 years from now, but I know that I'm going to make it 100%. One way or another. And it's just because that has been my motivation. And a lot of people, like, they misunderstand that with, me being materialistic or chasing money. But the thing is, money is important. There's no two ways about it. Like, life and the world revolves around money. But not just that, like, yes, money doesn't make you happy. Money can't necessarily buy happiness. But it's a lot easier to be less happy when you have less money because there's so many more challenges in your life.
Factors, for sure.
That being said, a lot of people that have, become more wealthy or, more financially independent and free, they've had to go through those challenges. And a lot of the people that have made it to the point of more excessive wealth generally come from a more like humble background. And I think that's just because they know what it's like to not have and they don't want to feel that way again. And for me, it's a similar kind of thing. I came from a very very lower middle income house, and we struggled to make it by, and I feel like I had a lot of struggles in my life that could have been solved by just having money, And for me, the main thing is I don't necessarily want the money just to have the money. I want the money so that I don't have to worry about money. For sure. And I think I was listening to an interview with someone, I can't remember who, but they were like literally saying like, I don't really care about buying luxury stuff. I just like not having to worry about money because that. And like you can see it, like relationships crumble because of financial problems, and there's a lot of households that have a lot of problems because of finances. And I think being able to be completely independent of that and not have to worry about it, that's the real goal here, at least for me as well. And like when you're able to share it with your family and you're able to change, their lives as well by what you're doing, and like they say, like there's always that one person in the family that changes that family's dynamic and brings extra wealth into the family so that future generations and bringing the generational wealth essentially into the family. And I felt like I was always going to be that person one way or another. And it's, again, I wasn't doing it for selfish reasons. I was doing it, well, I mean, to some degree it's selfish to want to make money for yourself, but the motivation for it is doing it for a psychological reason so that you don't have to, again, your family doesn't have to worry about money. And, just living a slightly more comfortable life. And I think that a lot of people that come, like I said, come from more humble beginnings, like yourself, you didn't have money starting out. You weren't just given everything. You had to work hard for it. You had to take the risks. And I think that, that's like key, and that there are certain people that are just designed differently and think about things differently than others. We're not looking to just live like a life that's day to day. We want to be exceptional, and I think that that comes from a different upbringing and it comes from a different, what would you say like your upbringing, how it affected your view on, firstly, like money and finances and your dream, obviously, of like, I would imagine like literally one of your dreams would be to like retire your family and those kinds of things. And for me, it's the same kind of thing. Like I want to be able to help my family, and I feel like I'm moving in the direction where I'm going to be able to do that at some point in the near future. And I feel like that for me was my main, and also, for my future family one day, I don't want them to be, compromised in any way, especially financially. And
Sure.
if that's the other thing, like finances, yes, maybe people say it's not important to be happy, but what happens when there's health problems? What happens when, bad things happen? There's, car accidents, etc., etc., and you can't afford to pay for insurance, or you don't have medical aid and that kind of stuff. Like
It's like inhumane though. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly.
stuff that people should get, like medical care and all that stuff. Like you deserve to have that,
Exactly.
and unfortunately, it comes with a price. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and especially in a country like this, like if you don't have those things, you're screwed. Like,
Yeah.
You can't in a country like this, you can't rely on the government.
look after you. You have to look after yourself, And not just that, I think we have it to some degree easier in this country because obviously living conditions, living expenses are so much cheaper than the rest of the world. I mean, when it comes to rent and those kinds of things, and other obviously, and that's obviously just due to our economy. But if you had to look at it, and I would often say like, hey, I want to make this much money. And like my girlfriend would be like, "You're crazy. That's so much money." I'm like, "But it's actually not. Like, look at overseas. Like, think about how much rent is like in New York. You literally got to pay like here it's like $100,000 a month rent for like a really crappy apartment, and you're like, but I just want to make enough to rent a really crappy apartment in New York, and that kind of thing. And also, if you're looking to like maybe even live in other countries, you have that option now if you've worked harder. So I digress. Essentially, what I was saying is like, how do you think that your upbringing affected your dreams and like in the way that you like I said, like for me, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have to worry about money like in later life, and just my family like one day needs to be sorted, and that's just my future family and my family at the moment. For you, like I'm assuming it was super similar, and like obviously, like how was your like early life molding that dream?
So yeah, I think like my upbringing was, I don't want to say like I got nothing. I got everything my parents could give me, like I'm an only child, so my parents did spoil me. But also, when I was younger, I could also see like how much sacrifice it took from their side to give me like what I wanted or what they wanted to give me. Like my dad would, miss sport games because he would be working. He would come home late at night, so I had more of a relationship with my mom. And seeing that and also experiencing that, like I remember like rugby games. I'd like play a rugby game Saturday morning and my dad wouldn't be there because he has to work. And then I remember seeing like these families, like their dad is there, the mom is there, the uncle, the cousin, everyone.
That's the thing, they say money can't buy happiness, but money allows you those luxuries.
For sure.
Hey, if I don't want to work today, I'm not going to work today. I'm
For
gonna
sure.
spend time with my family.
100%. And seeing that kind of like, I wouldn't say like my pinpoint was money, but I just knew like I wanted more freedom.
And money provides.
Yeah. Money is access. That's the thing. Money is access. So yeah, like my, again, like not seeing my dad at games and stuff kind of made me want him there, but also like made me realize that if I had the same path as him, and if I had a child later on, I wouldn't want to be like that, I wouldn't want to miss games or miss like plays or whatever it is. So also like seeing, your parents stress with money, it's one of the hardest things, like that brings conflict into the household. And it's also like, it's obvious, when your dad's stressed, when your mom's stressed. And seeing that and seeing how easy they were with certain things was quite tough. I remember like I actually had a conversation with my mom recently, and she was like, yeah, like it was actually really tough paying for bills. You know, I can't remember whether I was in primary school or high school, but we had this conversation like 2 weeks ago, and she was like, yeah, like we would literally just get by. And for me, I thought I was living like, you know, relaxed. So yeah, I always think like now, like it actually opened my eyes more after having that conversation with my mom, because she's more transparent with me now, because I think she's less stressed. She can open up. But for me, like I want peace, and I want transparency within family and loved ones, you know. And the thing is, money being a factor with everyone's day in life, that like let's just say if you go out for dinner with friends, okay, and your one friend can't really afford his meal, he's not going to enjoy that dinner as much as he wanted to. And for me, like I didn't know that was the pinpoint, but I wanted to eliminate that factor. And after making money, I knew that money was the factor of why there's conflict, why there's stress, why there's depression. So yeah, again, like, you know, they say money doesn't buy happiness. I would say like it kind of does to an extent, but
less likely to be
happy. For sure, in my opinion, I don't think it can necessarily buy happiness. By that extent, I don't think that it can. There's certain elements that money can't buy. However, there's a lot of things that can be eliminated by the presence of money. For sure. So there's a lot of problems that are eliminated that can make you unhappy. So without money, you can be pretty unhappy. With money, you can also be unhappy, but there's a lot less factors that could make you unhappy. And I think that that's also something that, you know, you see it like with people that win like the lottery and stuff like that. As soon as they get given a ton of money, generally they're not going to take that money and invest it super wisely and generally their life ends up turning to crap. And I think that that's also like something you can see that like with like these child stars and stuff in Hollywood that grow up super wealthy with a lot of attention on them. Most of them end up going crazy, like Amanda Bynes and all that stuff, like end up with like face tattoos and like drug problems and stuff like that. And you're just like, it's because they had this upbringing of like, they were given everything. So when you're given everything, you've got to create problems for yourself because you have no problems, essentially.
You also have nothing to look forward to.
Exactly. So what is the point of life, firstly? So you're going to create like this big problem out of literally nothing, because that's how your brain is designed. Your brain is designed to solve problems. So if there's no problem to solve, then you're going to create a problem, and often those problems are problems you don't want to have. So it's the same thing as like, there's a lot of people that like are like come from a upbringing of like, they've got the silver spoon, and I believe that those people are just, you know, it's arguable that they are less likely to be exceptional or have the kind of success that we're wanting to achieve. And it's just purely because they don't have that motivation. They don't know what it's like to be without. And that upbringing can like cultivate a mindset of knowing what it's like to be without, and knowing and wanting to have what you don't have, and have the comfort of knowing that everything is secure. So I think that was the main thing for me as well. Like I knew what it was like to be without. I knew what it was like to live in a household that was stressed about finances, and I knew I didn't want that for my life, and I knew I didn't want that for my family one day. So I knew that the only factor that was going to fix that was that. And yes, it doesn't necessarily fix all of your problems, but it fixes a lot of them. And it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't necessarily push you towards having happiness, because happiness cannot just be bought, obviously. But unhappiness can be brought by like the absence of it. So yeah, I think that it's important, and I think the media is largely to blame for this whole message of money's not that important, don't worry about it. Just get your normal job and you'll be happy with your day-to-day doings. Just, yes, you might be like miserable for a while, but that's normal and blah, blah, blah. And that's the thing. Some people are happy. Some people are actually genuinely happy with their jobs and what they do. And that's great. Like, you don't need to go and do anything exceptional, but there's a lot of us that just have like a desire for more. And I think that largely the media and governments in general don't want people to have the mentality of wanting more because it's bad for them. They use power that way. They want people to stay dumb and controllable. So yeah, I want to know like what's your opinion on that? Like, how do you think, in general, like people's mindsets differ to the way that I think that people like us look at the world? I think that it's really different. I think that in general, like, we just want more and we're willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do and sacrifice things that other people aren't willing to sacrifice to get there. But I think that it's just, in my opinion, due to our past and the way that we were brought up. And I think that molded us into the people that we are now.
For sure. I also, like, personally, I think people are programmed differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying everyone has to be an entrepreneur, everyone has to be a trader. Like, some people are happy being accountants, and some people are good at being accountants. Like, again, I've mentioned Nikhil so many times, but he's literally like my OG. He's an actuary and he's literally one of the smartest guys I know. He earns a set salary, but I always said to Nikhil, if you took risks, you'd be the richest person ever. Yeah. But he's not built like that. He's not programmed to take risks. Yeah. Some people are just better off working their 9 to 5 and stuff. And I won't say he's fully happy, because especially nowadays, like, you see entrepreneurs, ecom boys, traders, they're trending. So it's more shoved in people's faces that, there's a 19-year-old driving a Lambo and I've been working 7 years for this company. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
People aren't willing to wait
for things. They want things instantly and they want things now. They want to do the minimum that they have to do to achieve it as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So,
but one thing that I always say to people, if you're not programmed to take risks, 100% fine. But just keep in mind that one thing is never always going to work. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think COVID was the biggest eye-opener for everybody, that you're not safe in the industry that you're in. Yeah. You're not safe in your 9 to 5 job. Yeah. If you're still in your 9 to 5 job from before COVID started till now, the same company, you're lucky. Do you know how you know that company is going to survive another wave? Yeah. So for me, like, I always say that if you happy with your 9 to 5 and you don't want to take risks, that's fine. But you need to have other things running. And I'm not saying that has to be trading, but if something collapses, you need to make sure that you're still being able to keep your head above the water with something else. Yeah. That's just one thing that I always try to preach to people, that, like, you might be doing extremely well and I'm happy for you, but always put more eggs in other baskets.
Yeah, it can be taken away at any time.
For sure.
You could literally be,
involved in, for example, like the restaurant trade. You could have multiple restaurants, COVID happens.
Boom.
Then what? Then you're screwed.
Yeah.
So you have to diversify your incomes, like, a lot. It doesn't even matter nowadays really what your qualifications are to any degree. Qualifications from the university doesn't mean very much nowadays. It's all down to your experience and your skills, really. It's also like who you know as well. And so it just goes to show, like, really, the world's like shifting in a completely different way, and there's a completely different, I would say, marketplace when it comes to skills, and people are willing to have people with experience and skills rather than qualifications, because everybody has qualifications right now. There's an abundance of people that have gone to university, and it doesn't necessarily qualify you for that specific job. That being said, you can easily be replaced in that job, like, very easily, maybe a little bit less easily in South Africa versus overseas America. Yeah. Like, I can literally just swap you out like this. But you know what I mean? And I think that's also why you need to have other backups in place. But coming back to COVID, like you said, like, your success started to sort of come in just before COVID or around COVID. You started to, like, really, like, how do you think that affected you? And do you think it, like, reframed the way that you were, obviously it gave you a lot more time to devote to harnessing and shaping your skills a bit more, but do you think that played a big, like, role in where you are now?
Crucial, 100%. So I think COVID was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me for trading. Purely because so I'd say I got, especially in the beginning stages, COVID was the thing that kicked off my trading. Just because the volatility in the markets were crazy.
Yeah.
You before COVID, if you even 1,000 pips, you'll get 1,000 pips in a week, if even.
Yeah.
But during COVID, you'll get 1,000 pips in 15 minutes. So that volatility definitely benefited my trading, especially my trading style back then.
Yeah.
But I think also in terms of psychology wise, making money during COVID and not being able to spend it as well was honestly one of the best things ever that could have happened for me as well. Because I remember for the first 2 years of trading, year and a half maybe, I didn't spend a cent. Everything that I made, I reinvested either into crypto or I just keep on the side. I didn't spend any money on anything. The only thing that I bought in COVID was an iPad for my mom. That was it. I still traded with the iPhone 7s, and then I think in 2021 or 22 I bought an iPhone 12 Pro. But then back then I was trading with a 7s and I was working perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So COVID literally with the volatility, obviously it can either be in your favor or not.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, it's the same thing as if you take if you let's just say back with my kind of trading style during COVID, okay, if you trade with 1,500 rand, okay, and you buy just say New York session, okay, if price goes up 1,000, 2,000 pips, right, your returns are gonna be crazy because you would have loaded up that account, right? But then if you take a knock, you only losing 1,500 rand.
Exactly.
But again, that trading style, it's bad, okay? Because as I've traded over the years now, I've learned that you must treat trading like a business, not gambling. And the style that back then, if you had asked me, "Are you gambling?" I'd say, "No. What are you doing?" I'm trading.
Yeah.
It was a form of gambling.
Yeah.
Okay, I had more data to justify my moves, whether I was going to buy or sell, but I didn't treat my trading career like a business. And that's also what I think makes or breaks traders.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take your trading seriously, let's just say if you start a business, right? You know that you can't invest, or let's just say you start a burger joint. You can't invest all your funds into one magical burger. You have to, maybe someone comes and they're vegetarian, they're vegan, they're halal. You need to cater for every person. Same with trading, you need to cater for every environment.
Yeah.
So the moment I took my trading and treated it as a career is kind of when I had more of a sustainable growth. But the gambling side of trading did help me get crazy returns, and I would say it kind of did set me up to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
But me being able to switch that and turning it into business is what made me stay in the game. Because I could have easily made millions in my first year and then maintain that trading style, and then I could have lost everything in the next year or even the next month.
Yeah.
But because I was able to mentally transition into okay, cool, I especially my first year, I've never seen that much money in my whole life.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to be okay, I'm aware that I got lucky. I'm aware that I worked hard, but I needed to make a switch up because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And the moment I made that switch up is when I actually consider myself as a trader. In 2020, when COVID happened, I would like to call myself a trader, but I'd say when I actually became a trader,
is when I converted into business, and that was 2021.
Yeah, so I have so many similarities that I can draw to your journey versus mine. It was exactly the same thing of I lost a lot of money for a long time trying to trade in that way, but when I came across prop firms and I started trading with prop firms, I also pretty much gambled, to be very honest with you. I got really lucky and I managed to get the accounts funded, multiple accounts funded, which is pretty crazy because the odds are very stacked against you. You got very minimal odds of getting those accounts past phase 1 and phase 2 and then still getting a profit. You got literally less than a couple percent. And I managed to do it, and I managed to make decent profits. And then I realized, hey, is this actually sustainable? Because let's be honest, I got a little lucky here. And then I was like, how can I make it more sustainable? And I managed to, like I said, I turned it into more of a business where it is more calculated and So essentially we got like our little breaks and we used that to shape the rest of our like trading career. And we were kind of like learning on the spot, I would say. Like
Sure.
we got lucky, but we used that, we built on that and we turned it into something that's not lucky. It's just calculated risk that we risk with every single transaction that we're doing. So I think that like there's some actually really crazy similarities that we can draw from our journeys in general. But for me, that was the same thing. And immediately, once I had made that money, I was like, okay, I'm quitting my job. And I quit my job and I was like, okay, this is terrifying, but I have this money now and I need to make it work because there is no other option. And I think that that's also something that is debatable whether it's a good idea to do. When it comes to people that like quit their job and they're like, okay, I don't have a plan B now. But at the same time, psychologically, you've got to like put all that pressure on yourself to be successful. Otherwise, you're screwed for that month, you know? So as you know, like psychology is key to trading. What do you think is in that situation the best thing to do? Do you think it's best to quit your job and not have a plan B so psychologically you have to make this thing work? Or do you think that puts too much pressure on you and then you like analysis paralysis where you're like, I don't know what to do. You're too focused on making money and not focused on trading? What's your opinion, dude?
So are you asking like if someone should quit their job to pursue trading?
So they make a little bit of money trading and they're like, hey, maybe I've got a couple of months to go, like, I can sustain myself for a while.
Yeah.
Should they quit or should they wait? Because my opinion is, well, I know what my opinion is, but I want to hear what your opinion is.
See, so I would say it's very specific to the person. Do you know what I'm saying? Because even though you've had basically like a safety net for a couple months so that you can leave your job and pursue trading, how well developed are you psychologically with trading? Do you know what I'm saying? So, one person that is developed quite well psychologically with trading, they will obviously have a higher chance of being successful and making trading into a career. If another person who does the same thing and they're obviously not as developed, they could easily have a downfall. So I think that the best thing to do is kind of be realistic with yourself. Okay, like, is your safety net made from you actually being a good trader or you being lucky? And the moment you be realistic with yourself, you can actually determine what action is next. Because a lot of people associate luck with success, which it isn't, especially when it comes to trading. So yeah, if the person is well developed psychologically and they know what they're doing, I'd say pursue it, for sure, pursue it. But again, like, you need to be realistic. Like trading is one of the few businesses where you can actually lose money. You're not always going to win. You might even lose more than you win, but you just need to make sure that your wins have a higher reward than your losses. But it just depends where the person is at mentally and also financially. But yeah, I would there's a typical saying like, oh, if you have I think it's like 4 months worth of your salary, and then you can quit your job and pursue it. I disagree. I think it just depends whether you're in a sustainable environment to maintain that. If you're not, then you should keep doing your, like, if you're earning well with trading and it's doable to maintain your job, why not do both? If your job is taken away from your trading, if you feel like you can double or triple your earnings from trading by leaving your job, pursue it. If it's realistic.
I don't know. For me personally, like, it's tricky. So I think that when it comes to, it's also down to the individual. In general, when it comes to people trading, I think that having a safety net of a obviously secondary job is important because psychologically you're not putting pressure on yourself, which is going to allow you to make better decisions in general. Okay, so when it comes to decision making, you have to keep your psychology clear, obviously. And when you are putting yourself under that pressure, sometimes for certain people, they don't thrive under pressure, and other people do. And so I think that people that do thrive under pressure, quitting your job can be the best thing that you can do, because it will push you into that realm of uncomfortability that is healthy for you, so that you can pursue the actual dream that you're looking to do. And for me, it was the same. Like,
you're the best example of that.
I pushed myself into the most uncomfortable position possible, and I ended up building myself stronger from it. So for me, it worked out, but it could have easily gone the other way
100%.
to some degree. So I think the safest option is always like, just keep the job if you can. It worked in my case, and it kind of sped me along even, because not having that safety net can sometimes be, invaluable, because again, not having a plan B reinforces in your head that you have to make it work. But then you're putting that time pressure on yourself. Well, I've only got 4 months of savings from what I've made right now to make it happen. And so it worked well for me. But I'd say in general, like for most people, that pressure is going to cause them to have some, bad decision makings, etc.
I also think like it worked well for you because you've had all the seasons of emotions with trading, and with you seeing I've had a month filled with losses, a month filled with wins, a month at break even. You've experienced all seasons, and that's why I think it worked out in your favor as well, because you know that it's very possible. You know how you're gonna feel if you have a losing month and a winning month. But the thing is also, like, a lot of people who just pursue trading off the bat, quitting their job, they probably only experience the upside of trading. And the moment you experience the downside, it could be the start of your downfall, because you don't know how to react. You don't know how to maintain composed. So again, like, your story is crazy, but I think also part of your success is because you've experienced losses, you've experienced wins, you understand how to manage it. And when you became in control, is when you knew that quitting your job would be the best thing for you. So, again, like, if people want to quit their job, just be realistic. Like, did you make 4 months of your salary off one trade, and you think now you're going to be rich off trading just because of that one trade? Or even if it was compounded over like a couple months. But I do strongly believe that you need to experience all sides of trading. You need to lose money. You need to win money. You need to break even. You need to be wrong. You need to be right, to understand that whether it's something that you want to pursue and whether it's sustainable.
Right. In terms of, like, when you are looking to move into that direction, do you think that it, like, literally, like I say, it depends on the person. So how would you say you would be able to tell what kind of person you are when you're looking to, like you said, it's how you deal with losses and wins? Do you think that that's it? People that deal with losses in a certain way versus people that deal with wins in another way? But I think also, specifically for myself, I sort of did things backwards. So like I said, I just shot myself into it, and I made it work because I had to make it work. And so it worked out for me, but it could have easily not have as well. But I feel that psychologically for myself as well, when I had other businesses as well, working alongside them, it just makes your trading so much better. It makes you not put emphasis on the outcome of the trades that you're making, but you're able to focus on the process of trading and executing your trades and your edge in a way that's going to make you profitable overall. So I feel that when you put yourself in that situation, you're focusing on the outcome, which is making money so that you can pay your rent or whatever. And so I feel like in general, I think the best thing to do is to try and keep your job if it's not affecting you more psychologically in a negative way than it would if you quit your job and you were stressed. Because some jobs just stress you out and you're already psychologically not going to be a great trader when you work in those jobs. Maybe you can do both, but I mean, how sustainable that is debatable. So yeah, it's a tricky question to answer. In terms of like, this is a question that I think could give a lot of insight into, some of the challenges you had personally when you were coming up, like what was your biggest challenges, as a trader? Like, was it all psychological? Were there like other factors that were impacting your trading? So yeah, in terms of just the challenges that you had as a trader, like starting out and as you're starting to get profitable, what were like the boundaries in place that stopped you from getting to a profitable point?
Sure. So I'd say there's actually a few things, like a lot of speed bumps that kind of slowed me down to get to the point where I'm at now. One of them being also trying to trade every day, and everything. Like you don't have to, have a setup, wait for price to come to that setup, wait for validation, and then take the trade. For me, like especially managing, like a signal group and all that stuff, you like in 2021, I'll try to get like 3 signals out daily, I would force trades just to like get signals out and also so that I can take trades, which isn't trading. You don't have to trade every single movement of the market. You trade what you see and what you want. Another thing would also be with losses. I think, especially when I had that gambling mindset with trading, when I would have some good days, I would be like, okay, cool, like I made X amount. Imagine if I traded with this amount, what I could have earned. And I kind of bid on something that I couldn't really chew. And that kind of trading style would be unsustainable for me. Like, for example, like let's just say you make 40K off a 10K account and you're like, oh, that's, it's like a 400% return. Imagine if I loaded like 100K, and I got 400%. Like you just fascinate about numbers too much, and that kind of breaks down trading of what it is. So I actually started chasing numbers in terms of like profit targets rather than like actual winning days, percentage return, so on.
But again, that's focusing on the outcome. Like you want to make a certain amount, whereas that it's not necessarily going to be consistent. Every day I'm going to make this amount. Every week I'm going to make this amount.
Sure.
But when you just focus on the trading itself, like everything just figures itself out, and that hey, the outcome may not always be this at the end of every day, but like overall, in a month, in a year, I'm going to have this outcome. But if you focus on an outcome every time, it's going to affect your decision making. And I think that's also a big deal.
100%.
Yeah.
And also like one thing that I also realized with trading, one thing that actually benefited me a lot is having like your trades, like one trade doesn't describe what kind of trader you are. For example, like if you have a losing trade, you think you're wrong, you're scared to take the next trade because you might be wrong as well, you don't believe in your setup, so on. So like for me, like also that falls down to risk management, like if you have 4 winning days and then you have 1 losing day, and then that losing day breaks down those 4 winning days, you're not managing your trade properly, your business, So for me, like also I manage my risk more properly now, so that if I have a losing day, it doesn't affect me in the bigger picture of things. Yeah. And also like I won't break down my confidence to take the next trade. But I also think the moment you manage how much you're going to lose and whether it's sustainable to your business plan for trading, is when knocks won't really knock you down. Where if you're risking way too much of what you actually can afford, you are going to be scared of taking the next trade because you've lost a significant amount that wasn't planned. So for me, like now, like obviously the goal isn't to, be okay with taking losses. The goal is to obviously reevaluate where you went wrong and try to work on that. But for me now, like me taking losses doesn't affect me that emotionally anymore. Like I'm also trading, like with also any business, your confidence will portray itself in your work. If you're very confident in your setup, again, differentiate between cocky and confident. But if you're confident in your setup, you'll probably have a better trade than being scared. Yeah. So for me, I I eliminated fear with trading. Like I'm not afraid the moment I enter trading and I see a big negative number. I'm okay because I trust my setup. Right. And if I lose, that's okay as well. There's another day.
Right. Yeah. So I think that
that's like some really solid advice. I think that there's a lot of struggles that. Hang on, I just want to check this. Okay, it is on. It's just very light, very soft. I think.
Is mine good? Oh, okay.
Yours is good.
Lovely.
It's just really soft. Hang on. Okay, no, whatever. I'll have to fix it. So yeah, in terms of like obviously the challenges that you faced, I think that there's like a lot of similarities that can be drawn there for a lot of people. And I think the main thing it boils down to is treating trading more like a business.
Sure.
Just literally taking the risks into account and knowing, hey, this is what the outcome could be, this is what the other outcome could be, and being prepared for both. So I could lose. If I lose this much. If I win this much. But also having a solid plan that you can, plan what you're going to do before you even do it. So before you get into the trade, you already know what you're going to do and when, and you already know how you're going to manage those emotions when they come up, when they happen. So I think that that's one of the biggest things for me that I managed to learn. And it's just literally knowing, and I think it just comes with experience and experiencing those emotions so often that you eventually learn how to deal with them. In terms of yourself, when you started out trading, if you could literally go back in time and like tell yourself one thing, like give yourself a piece of advice, what would you tell yourself if you literally had to go back in time right now and say, hey, cut the crap, do this instead?
What would you tell yourself?
I think I would have wanted to treat my trading style like a business sooner, because especially, like I only really realized to convert into that mentality after taking unnecessary losses, and also not necessarily having a proper track record of my wins and losses. So I think like now, obviously, like I'm religious with like tracking what trade I take, why I lost whenever I take a trade, my reason, what happened, how much I started with, if I lost, why did I lose. I track back. I wish I had that much data in the beginning so that I think I would have been way more developed right now.
Right.
So yeah, I think, just the thing is like, I don't want to say I was freestyling, but
Yeah.
I think I was like,
It's also, I think that's when you make that bridge that gap from
Gambling and getting a bit lucky to actually treating this as a business and something that's more sustainable long term. And when you also have that data, it literally puts you in a position where you can plan for your future, for example, future losing streaks and future wins potentially. You know what to expect because you know what's happened in the past. And that's why I keep saying like backtesting a strategy and going back and trading previous data with like trading view, bar replay and those kinds of things is really, really valuable because you gain a lot of experience. Obviously, you're not dealing with the same emotions, so it's a different thing altogether. But I think once I started doing that personally, it changed a lot for me. But I think as well, when it comes to like who you surround yourself with, I think it's really important as well, like psychologically, to know that, like I said, when I started to meet people that were trading and being profitable, it puts your brain into this mode of, hey, it's doable. These people that are doing it, why the hell aren't I doing it? And once I realized that as well, I think that was key for me. Like, and I don't think there's a lot of people that get that lucky moment of, being like literally in the company of people that are. But that being said, you were one of those people that I knew were making money at a point when I wasn't making money, and I was like, hey, I know he's making money. I know he came from the same place as me. He was also struggling, and he's making it. So why aren't I making it? And when somebody is like a proof of concept, you can immediately say, hey, they did it. Why can't I do it? What's wrong with me? So I think that was also like really key for me.
Yeah. For me, I also want to actually add to your question. Another thing that I would add is actually being open-minded, because it's funny enough, it's very ironic actually. I remember like probably 2021. So I'm at my dad's restaurant in Ladysmith, and this one guy tells my dad about FTMO. And I was like, he was saying like, yeah, this sounds good. You know, like you, because he just wants me to become an employee basically, you know. But he's like, yeah, this sounds good. I didn't even want to bother to do research and stuff. He was like, yeah, this guy told me like you can trade like this and you earn like a salary. And I was thinking like, oh, you probably like earn like a fixed salary with like this trading. I didn't know it was a prop firm or anything. And it's so funny because my dad actually suggested that to me. For me, also, one thing that I would have done if I was starting off, I definitely would have dabbled in prop firms. Because, you know, that discussion that we had earlier on, you know, I'm still till now, like, I'm not educated about prop firms just because that's not my niche. But I would say it's such a big opportunity for a lot of people, especially if you don't have a lot of capital to work with. You know, if you have the skill but you don't have the set out, it could be a great place to kick off your trading career.
I just think that it's like it changes your mentality completely because you treat it more like a business automatically because you've got more capital to deal with, so you can take smaller chunks of it and risk less and treat it as a, you know, you're trading percentages, you're not trading money in your head. So I think that that's what flipped the switch for me particularly. So I admire people that are able to take, you know, trading like yourself without the use of prop firms. I think it's crazy. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to do it, to be honest. And it's funny you mentioned like your dad said that. Literally in my family, my mom was like, yeah, you can work for this company. I
Same
swear,
story.
When I first started working with prop firms, like, oh wow, so you're working for this company overseas? I'm like, I'm not really working for them. I just make money using them. They're like, oh, but maybe you can meet them and they'll give you this like full-time job. I'm like, Mom, I'm not really looking for. I'm not looking to work for people. I'm gonna be fine without people. They're
That's
like,
so funny.
but maybe you can network with them and they'll offer you a job there.
The opportunities.
Like, Mom, I don't want to work at the company. I'm gonna make money using them. She's like, okay, that's fine, but just maybe think about it. So it was quite funny because literally my mom continuously tried to modify what I was doing into more of a normal job where I was like, but that's not what I'm doing. So yeah, it's funny. But I mean, at the same time, you need parents that are like that. And I think like people want to think more progressively all the time and be super open-minded and stuff. But I think that being conservative is important as well. And like for me, my girlfriend is the person that speaks reason into me, where I'm the heavy dreamer and I just want to do everything and I dream big, and she's just like, hey, listen, be realistic. And I think it's important to have that. And I think for you, like your dad as well, like you would just be like, hey, just be realistic. You made all this money, but it could be gone tomorrow. And it's important because I think it's important to have like both sides and just to be balanced.
100%.
Yeah. So I think overall, like, we've both been on like really crazy journeys, and there's certainly like similarities hearing your story. But I think like I'm just really glad that I had you here to chat with you and dig deeper into it. And I like even speaking to you before this, I've just along the way like there's just so many things where I could be like, hey, I've been through that exact same stuff. Like it's pretty similar. It's pretty damn similar, to be honest. And like I said, we started at the same spot, but we diverged and we took different paths, but we still ended up in a similar kind of situation. And I think that's, again, like testament to you can do things in a different way and have the same outcome. It's just literally an individual person making things work in their own way. So, yeah, I think it's crazy. But, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about today. I think we could talk for ages. But I mean, I really appreciate
Thank you so much.
Out here, dude. I think this was a conversation that was waiting to happen for a long time, and I really appreciate it, dude.
Long overdue.
So,
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for being here. So, guys, this was the first episode of the Fair Value Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do drop a subscribe below and hit the bell icon to be notified when we upload new videos. We're going to be having a lot more guests on in the near future, and so if you really want to see better people on this podcast, you need to be subscribed below and support the channel through likes and comments so that the algorithm can boost us to loads of people and we can get more people on the show. So thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you in the next podcast or in one of my other videos.